July 17th, 2025 meeting of the Board of Public Works and Safety is now in session. All members are present as well as legal counsel. First on the agenda is the approval of minutes from July 10th, 2025.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes as presented. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next are claims for payments in the amount of $225,194.59.
Move to approve claims for payment.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the claims for payment as presented. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next on the agenda are payroll claims for payment special in the amount of $191.61.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the payroll claims for payment special as presented. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next on the agenda are requests. We have new handicap signs and a street closure. We don't have a representative here, so we will table that to our next meeting on July 24th. So next on the agenda are handicap signs for renewal, 34 Northwest 16th Street and 1811 North 8th Street.
I'll make a motion to approve both handicap sign renewals.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the handicap sign renewals as presented. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next are petitions, curb cuts, 720 Northwest L Street, new drive off of Northwest L Street, 11th Street, sorry about that.
I'll just note that this driveway did receive a variance from the city's Board of Zoning Appeals just last week. That was approved. So with that, I would make a motion to approve the curb cut at 720 Northwest L Street.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the curb cut as presented. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next on the agenda is miscellaneous. It's a final answer. The final answer of Board Public Works and Safety of the firefighter grievance number 1-2025 regarding overtime claim of Michael Stolfus. My understanding that Board Member Paust has a comprehensive proposed motion. Board Member Paust, would you like please propose and present your proposed motion at this time?
Be happy to. Mr. President, I move to partially approve the grievance of firefighter local 1408, such as firefighter Michael Stolfus should be paid for a portion of the overtime, but due to said firefighter not meeting all of the regulations to obtain permission from the fire chief, the payment will be for only half of the properly logged time firefighter Stoffel attended the training while he was not already on duty. And said vote is contingent upon a first stipulation that the union representation on behalf of the union enter into a separate written agreement with the fire chief confirming that the partial approval and partial payment shall not set a precedent and shall not be binding on signed contracts and policies already in place as based on federal law. Upon a second stipulation that relevant policies of the fire chief must be confirmed, that the fire chief's approval must be in writing in advance of a member's enrollment. Upon a third stipulation that all future pre-employment agreements contain the provision that the fire chief's approval must be in writing and must also be in advance of enrollment, and upon a fourth stipulation that this partial approval shall not alter or affect the written contracts and policies already in place as already based on federal law, CFR 785.30 and .31.
Thank you, Board Member Paust. Prior to this proposed motion being seconded, I'll open the floor to the union to ask questions about this proposed motion.
Do you think, Jordan Price, sorry, will we get get this in writing to where we'll be able to have a comprehensive piece of paper here to where we'll be able
Absolutely,
to understand
yes.
that completely?
Yep.
Now, you did say this is partial payment for half of his overtime, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And was there any, I guess you guys are saying that he didn't follow proper regulations, correct?
Correct.
Can you clarify what regulations were put in place that he did not follow?
Well, if you look at the entire presentation that you made and the information that we got from the chief on there, there's definitely a communications problem for this. And if you recall, I've said we need to look at this and to try and figure out how this does not happen in the future.
Right.
Obviously, the approval by the chief was not given for this individual to attend this class. However, his immediate supervisor on there suggested that he sign up for the class, that it was filling up very quickly, which he did, and he did sign up for that. So, and also in asking further, I asked how far does the chief designate other people can make a decision for him? The information that I basically received, well, it goes as far as the battalion chief. After that, the lieutenants and the other, there's another one down there, driver or something, I forget what that is, do not have that authority to authorize the firemen to attend a class. So that's what I've been working on here, to try and work it out so that it would work not only for the firemen, but for the administration and the chief as well, so that we don't have any misunderstanding on this. There isn't any doubt, I'm sure, that the chief wants the firemen to attend the classes.
Absolutely.
The firemen who sign on want to attend that. In reading some of the documents on there, it's not as clear as I think it should be to designate on there as to who has to give the permission and so on, yeah.
Was legal consulted on this at all? Just a question.
I did ask legal on this. I gave her what I had in mind. I asked her to look at that, and I said, is it possible to do something like this?
Absolutely.
And her answer was, yes, it is.
Okay. And
I don't know that anything like this has ever been done before this way or not, but.
right. And I do
Yeah.
appreciate what you've come down with, and I'm not taking anything away
Understand.
from that. But has all federal labor laws been covered in this situation to where it's understood
I
completely?
can't answer that question.
Okay.
That's a legal one and
Right,
research, I suppose.
right,
they would
okay.
do.
I just want to make one last remark.
Sure.
I do appreciate the conclusion you've come to and the work you've put in to come to that conclusion. But I do want to say that the Richmond Fire Department has suffered from an extreme retention issue for a very long time, as well as a morale issue. And not only my opinion, but the entire union and many others outside of the fire department, majority agree that Michael Stoltzfus has met every single obligation that he has been told prior that he had to meet. I think this decision right here is going to be a major catalyst for the future of the Richmond Fire Department, because not only do we struggle now with our paramedics and gaining retention and keeping people here and becoming a place where people want to work, when they see that they have a guy here, we have a paramedic requirement, the surrounding departments don't. When they see a guy that's here on this department that does have that requirement, put in the work, met his obligations, and sees how the department treats him, and not saying the city as well, but that the city didn't fully support the contract that the city also came up with, it's going to deter so many more people from looking at this place as a job opportunity when they see, oh, we don't want to go there because we see how they treated their guys. They already have a paramedic requirement, and they're not even paying their guys completely for the time that they put in. So I just wanted to let that remark be known and let you guys understand that this is going to be a major, major catalyst going forward on what the future of the Richmond Fire Department is going to look like. But I do thank you for the time you put in.
So one thing back is that, we opened it for questions specifically to the proposal. Okay, we're not here to try to re-grieve this.
Right, no, I'm
So
not.
just so we
Yeah,
understand.
your conclusion is your conclusion. I just
Thank you.
want it to be
Thank
known,
you.
not only to you guys, but to the public as well.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, President Kyle Vickers. You guys made a statement as far as the procedures in the past. So I want to let you know, Jerry Purcell sits here today, and I came in October 6th of 2014. I was one of the first members to have to go through the required paramedic.
And I'll ask again, is this a question about the proposal, or are you making a statement?
I was just wanting to.
Okay, so we're looking for questions about the proposal.
Yeah, I was wondering, but I just wanted to hopefully educate on,
It's already been grieved.
Okay.
We're proposing this for you to review.
okay,
So that's where we're at with this. We're not trying to re-grieve this.
okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
All right. Administration, do you have any questions? Floor is open to you. Can you take your hat off?
Assistant Chief James Clark. I do have one question about the proposal. If federal labor laws were not reviewed, how can we agree to this is one question. Because I don't know how we can agree to only pay for half. And then how do you stop it at this employee and not the other employees? Because agreeing to this, we're only doing it for one employee, but this would change the contract as an addendum. So you would be discriminating against one employee to another.
Well, if you
And
would,
then in that proposal, you also didn't put in time restraints in our grievance procedure. This would be changing the contract, so we would need guidance on how the proceeding grievance procedure would proceed after this date, if this was agreed upon. Potentially.
you're talking
I'm not
the
gonna make
10
a statement.
days, is that what you're talking about?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So those are my questions.
I can answer probably the first part of the first question. So to the extent that before the grievance hearing, I had looked at what Kenneth cited, which was 29 CFR 785.30 and 29 CFR 785.31. And to the extent that I also looked at the exhibit package presented by Mr. Price. And I had, again, before the meeting, which is allowed, I'd given the grievance package to the board, and I also provided them with the 2 citations. So to the extent that they were looking at the entire package of information, as well as listening to the evidence from the union and the administration, they were taking everything under consideration with the understanding that, yes, there's language in the federal law that says how the federal law looks at things like this. So I don't know that they necessarily are primarily basing the motion off of those. The language said C29 CFR, and I did communicate with Ken when that was written. So I do have extra copies of that federal code if the union would like a copy and if you would like a copy.
Also, in my particular case, and I'm not an attorney, so that's why I had the part in here about this partial approval here shall not alter or affect any of the written contracts. So the way I look at this, that does not affect your 10 days as to when, if they have a complaint, they have to file it and so on. It shouldn't change, at least I have no intentions of changing any of that. And I don't see how this would change that, Chief.
Well, according to the grievance procedure, this also at the end of the grievance procedure for these proceedings, yeah, once it's passed, either way it goes, it becomes addendum to the contract.
I don't know, this would be a question for Kim, but can we get some clarification on what that addendum looks like? Because I think in this particular case, the union's argument regarding the 10-day window is, I think, persuasive enough to say that, this was not filed outside of that 10-day window. Granting this grievance, though, does that change the CBA to where it just completely invalidates the 10-day window, or what does that look like?
I wasn't sure if that was what the intent Ken wanted to have.
No,
No,
and
no,
I
I did
wouldn't
not.
support that.
I didn't, as an attorney, I didn't view it that way necessarily. I didn't really intend for a motion to be viewed as an addendum. I'm not sure what the past practice is on that, and I might yeah, Kenyatta might have some information.
What he's quoting to you is the language in the current CBA. At the end of the grievance procedure, it says that any decisions that are made become an addendum to the agreement. So it will, in essence, be an appendix that gets added on.
And would that invalidate the 10-day window for future grievances?
Well, because you guys have kind of decided that that was invalid.
There can be a fifth stipulation that it would not invalidate that 10-day window.
I'd
If you want to
support
amend
that
your
if that's
motion.
Possible, yeah.
Yeah.
Would you,
I personally, I don't advise them because I know you're doing that. I personally wouldn't do that. The reason for that is because, to me, it would set a bit of a precedent that, the next one comes and, well, you invalidated that one. Well, this one wants to be invalidated as well, and yet we have another one that is now an appendix on the agreement. I just think it's kind of a Pandora's box in terms of opening up that. And if you didn't intend to do that with the 10 days, I'm not really sure how to solve it. I wasn't sure, obviously, what you guys were going to say. So we could work on finding something that works with the CBA still so that it doesn't, perhaps. But right now, what I'm hearing will impact it.
without without a possible fifth stipulation?
Saying what?
Saying that this does not impact the 10-day appeal or the 10-day timeline that's at the end of the grievance language.
I'd have to, because and my apologies, I came in at 5:03. I was working on something else, so I didn't hear everything that you read out. But I guess my concern would be what the current language already says, how it says it's an addendum, and you know what that means.
Absolutely.
So that's my concern.
Do you want to give 5 minutes to allow her to read what the proposed motion was, or do you want to reread the proposed motion?
Well, I can read that. My intent, okay, is.
I came in when you were reading, I think.
Okay, well, on the last part here where I said in the fourth stipulation, this partial approval shall not alter or affect the written contracts. And so, and then that went on to say, in contracts already in place is already based on federal law. I have no intention of all of trying to change the procedure that a fireman has if they have a complaint that they want to register something. Not looking at that at all. That's why I tried to get something in here that would say that it doesn't change any of that, that's in effect just like it is right now, stays in effect unless in your contract negotiations you change it somehow in there or something. I'm not sure how that works.
The contract is what we follow. That's how we address everything that we do is through the contract. And this is more like a gray area. You're creating a gray area in that. And then the next time we have this problem, it becomes part of the.
So my fair question back to you would be is, are we creating a gray area when a lieutenant approves or sends somebody to training?
Lieutenant doesn't have that right.
Well, they see it differently. I mean, I could be wrong, but he was told to go to this course. Sure.
So, President Vickers again, I got two questions. Okay, what I was saying a while ago, I was one of the first ones, 2014. Everybody from 2014, a couple of the guys have left, whatever. Everybody has been paid except for Michael and the other guy. That's been required to have their paramedic. So to me, would that not be discriminatory if we didn't pay them too, but we paid everybody else? That's one question. Second question is, every day he goes to a clinical, he's aggrieved. Would that not be correct? Every time he does a clinical and he's not getting paid for his clinical time and rolls through to the next 28-day cycle and has been doing his clinicals and going to his live weeks, is he not aggrieved every time that happens?
That's illegal. I can't answer that, yeah.
No, he is not. He is not aggrieved each time because he doesn't get to prolong that process. He doesn't get to keep prolonging the process. The first time that he was put on notice that he was not going to receive the money, that was the time that he was supposed to file a grievance. That is the 10-day window. If that's the case, then if I'm aggrieved, I can continue to I can do things with my conduct that will continue to push my my filing window out, and that's not the intention of the contract ever. Because if that's the case, then I can decide, okay, well, it doesn't even have to be this sort of scenario, but that I'm going to do something else so that something else can happen, so I have a new window. You don't get to keep opening a new window for yourself. That's not how that works. He was supposed to, the moment he found out that he wasn't going to get paid, that's when his clock starts ticking, not each single time that he doesn't get paid. The moment he found out.
Mr. President, I'm open to any suggestions or legal if you have anything that, you know what I'm trying to do.
Sorry, Jordan Price.
Right.
In response to that, you can go back into the history of the Richmond Fire Department and look through many of our grievances, and this is something that does happen. There is past practice for this. There is a history of this, and this is a very common thing throughout departments across the country with a grievance procedure.
So the wording says in the contract, in the grievance section at the very end, any grievance settlement that is related to this contract, let me repeat that, any grievance settlement that is related to this contract will be attached to this contract as an addendum. So to the extent that in Mr. Stolfus's case, the timing might be deemed waived by the board, and you guys looked at the substantive part of this, what he was grieving was his overtime. So I'm not sure if that helps or if that's not something that
Well, if you listen.
makes a difference.
Is it Loretta? I'm sorry. Okay.
Kenyatta.
Kenyatta, I'm sorry, we haven't met before, so.
That's okay, and my apologies, I did not say my name when I came up here, and I should
Okay.
have. Kenyatta Cox.
But
the
listening
HR director.
to what you said earlier, that if he didn't file in 10 days after the very first time, he's late.
Yes, but that's not, I mean, I presumed you guys discussed all of that when you went through your process. But what she was saying with regard to the addendum, if you move forward with what I presume the proposal is, where you're waiving, in essence, this in this case, then, I just feel like if you have subsequent ones, you're going to need to give that same sort of deference to those as well. Be willing to waive that.
Well, it all depends on the circumstances. Depends on the circumstances that the union present to us and what the chief would present to us as to whether or not it would be the same as this particular case.
While I agree with that in theory, I don't in practice, but I understand what you're saying. It looks different in practice.
Well, I think this is a difficult case.
I agree.
Because I find, on the chief's side, I understand exactly where he's coming from. I understand where the firemen are coming from here also. And as you look at that, you can say, and I'm learning on here, I'm learning that a lieutenant down there doesn't have the chief's authority to tell Mr. Stoffel, sign up for this class and you'll get paid for it. He doesn't have that authority, that it rests with only the chief and the battalion chiefs. So I'm learning also on here, and yet in the written material I've been able to read so far that I've seen, I don't find anything in there that says that the lieutenant down there does not have the authority. To me, the lieutenant would be in that area of ranking having that authority. Obviously, it does not here. So, I'm learning as I go along on this, and at the same time, I can look at the chief. And when I finally finalized with this, after going there, I've spent hours trying to read all the material. I looked at this and I felt this was a good compromise from my point of view on here. You might not agree with that because you're negotiating the contracts. I'm not in the contract, and I do have a contract of that, but I have not read that contract specifically. I've read all the other material that the union folks provided to us and the information that chief provided. Yeah.
So Kim, is it safe to say, based on the contract, either we acknowledge his 10-day period and continuation of the grievance that you were talking about, or we deem him as past time on his grievance, and that's where this really stands at the end of the day. The legal teams both?
My thoughts were choice C,
Yeah, yeah.
in that it was already waived by allowing him to come to this board and put a stop to all future ones, but not necessarily, and that was my understanding from what my conversation with was Ken, but not necessarily the gentleman, because it was testified that there were 2 or 3 others who were advised to take that under that alleged misunderstanding. And so my thought process was that it was choice C.
Yeah, but we're being narrowed back to A or B, is what it's sounding like here.
I think you're making a decision, and maybe Kim's correct in that the decision has already been made to waive the 10 days by just pure the fact that you decide to hear the grievance. But I'm concerned about the future ones if something's not said with regard to the 10 days.
And would that be something that could go back into the contract when there is a new negotiation?
What do you say that again? What do you?
Is that something that would be negotiated for future contracts, replacing the current CBA?
Well, this one AJ just got this one done, because I did not negotiate this one. It just became effective 1/1.
And I'll make this general comment. I don't think it's this board's position to be there in the contract or to get in the middle of your guys' contracts. So,
Yeah, I agree. You folks negotiate the contract on there. I guess I just don't, and I don't know how you negotiate the contract, all right? I just don't see how this is going to change the disciplinary procedure that the chief follows, which is 10 days, and you have to do that within, I just don't see how this changes that, but you do the negotiation so you understand it better.
Did it not address the 10-day?
See, to me,
Part of it.
the 10-day thing that you're talking about, that's another whole different issue in my mind than what
But
we're
it's the
looking at
initial
right
issue.
here.
I think you have to overcome before you move to the substantive part of it. It's the procedural part of the issue. So you address the procedural part before you move to the substantive.
So the union
So-
made the case that when Mr. Stoltzfus initially began receiving his checks and noticed that he wasn't receiving overtime, that at that time, the chief of EMS continued to assure him that he was looking into it. That was what the union had
Right.
presented, meaning that from Mr. Stoltzfus's perspective, this could still be deliberated internally and it hadn't reached the point of the grievance yet. And so for me, I wasn't thinking that we were going to waive the 10 days moving forward, but rather just that timeline had perhaps shifted. Yeah.
Yes, and even if it did, like what you're describing, Dustin, if it was prolonged for that month or two that was occurring, and I don't remember the exact time, so don't hold me to it, that's fine. That month or two, we're still months and months out of that from 10 days, from the moment that they found that out.
Yeah, well, it was 24, so I forget.
Yeah. So we're still
exact month now,
significantly,
but yeah.
significantly past that, even if we extend the window. And I agree with you. Like if it's like limbo at that time, like, oh, I don't know what's going on, or and he hasn't had that hard no yet, that this, whatever. But I don't know that encapsulates all that, like it captures all of the testimony, because I remember him saying something totally different that he had already let him know very early on before this back and forth even occurred. So, and it's a matter of how you weighted that. Which one did you feel was more credible testimony with regard to that?
Hello, Jeremy Blake, First Vice. I just want to let the board know, Ms. Kenyatta Cox is a smart lady. I don't doubt that. She's a lot smarter than I am. But I just want to let the board know that with what you just mentioned, Mr. Purvis, that there was ongoing conversations saying that he felt that the conversations were going on, that this was going to get resolved. If it's the board's pleasure to not recognize the 10 days that he was outside of the window, that will change the union and the chief's office relationship, because there's several issues that come up. And if If what we're being told is we can no longer accept, we're looking into it, we have to file and now force the issue with conversations. So that's a difficult situation. So.
I also like to mention, again, not going against Ms. Cox at all, but she gave you a firm, hard no that he does not get to do that and that he's prolonging it. There's literally a labor law term, it's in that packet I gave you as well, the continuous grievance doctrine. That is for recurring violations. It is not just this, you have to fit it in this time frame. There is quite specifically a term for this exact situation. Again, with the contract and the addendum, yes, it has to be changed. Where you guys are with it and this confusion now and how it has become difficult to narrow it down. Again, I'm not trying to change too much what you guys have had, but in essence, the best thing to do with, because in your proposal, you don't want to change too much. You want to settle this issue here, and we work in the future to prevent something like this from happening. The best way to do this, and by creating an addendum, is to pay Michael Stoltzfus in full to make sure that the paramedics meeting their requirements. Not only was, again, you guys keep saying the lieutenant, not only was it his lieutenant, but it was also the EMS chief that disseminated information that come down from the chief. So it was not only his lieutenant. He should be paid. We have the addendum in that the paramedics in class get their overtime for their hours put in. That will take care of the other individuals that are affected, the one other individual that is affected. And from here on, these two individuals, they get their payment. We clear this up. We move forward, not only with the union and the fire department, but with the city to come to a conclusion of, yes, chief, you do get the final say. You do get to approve everything before it's all said and done. But this specific time, they are partly to blame. So we should come together as a city, fire department, union, solve this issue, create that addendum, and move forward in the future so we do prevent this from ever happening again. There might have been this mishap this one time, but with that, it never happens again. The union is willing to work with that and give him that authority, but as it is now, with the contract as it's written, Michael Stoltzfus deserves to be paid, and he is within his rights with the continuous grievance doctrine.
Right, because the chief already has that authority with regard to management rights. So it's not authority that they're agreeing to or that he's being, giving at this time. It already exists.
Yeah, I would agree that the chief certainly has that authority, and and I would come back again to communications in this particular case. And I'm reiterating what I've said earlier, is I've looked at this and I've read all the union material. I listened to what the chief had to say on there and looked down through there, and I'm still in my best judgment, and I hear you trying to come up with a solution that satisfies the chief and satisfies the fire department. I don't find that solution out there. I found a compromise that I thought was the best that I could come up with in listening to both sides on here. You've taken the issue completely away from this into now, whether it's 10 days where he can do that, and to me, that's another whole issue, and none of that should change with what we're trying to propose here, at least in my mind. Yeah, go ahead, I'm sorry.
You're fine, sir. President Vickers, would not the pre-employment agreement that Mr. Stoltzfus signed, would that not be the authority and approval from the chief's office? It's saying that you signed this pre-employment agreement, that in 5 years you'll become a paramedic at Richmond Fire Department. If not, your employment will be terminated.
I would agree with you that that particular agreement that they signed needs to be updated. It should have in there for.
He signed one on his hiring date, and then before his
Yep,
probationary year was up.
I got copies of it.
made
It
him sign
basically
another one.
says within 5 years, he has to get his EMTs. What it should say in there, not only that he has to do that, but he has to have the approval of the chief. It does not say that in there. And in one area, it says, I forget where it is now, it says should. Shouldn't even be should, it should be must in there. And so when you get down to discussing one word on there, I mean, yeah. It's,
Pick them apart.
yeah, and
Negotiate.
it's, you know, and I feel bad about this. Here's a young man that's trying to comply and become a better firefighter on there, and here I am sitting here and looking at this, and I'm saying, okay, I'm only gonna pay you half for doing this. Yeah, it's tough for me on sitting up here and having to do that, because we're talking a few dollars here. It's not like it's only $100 or something. We're talking a few $1,000s here we're talking on.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult for me as I looked at this to put this together to try and say, where is the compromise? Was this side on the administration 100% accurate? In reading it from their point of view, they are 100% accurate from your point. But when I look at it, there's a lot of holes in there between on the administration side and on the fire side on there on that contract. Like we said, just a few words from should to must, which I think can clear all this up in the future. But when you get into the contracts, that's, to me, that's another whole.
To our understanding, pre-employment agreements have to come from the administrative side. They can't come from the CBA. But we did put in our last negotiations and for the chief's office to uphold that pre-employment agreement. So since I've had to sign one, the pre-employment agreement becoming a paramedic has been in place since 2014. So in my understanding, without trying to file documentation, ask to go to this class, this is a term of your employment to remain a firefighter with Richmond Fire Department. I see, and I'm asking you as well, which it sounds like you have agreed, that that's from day one, when the chief's office gives you this letter to sign, that's him signing off on the authority of you're going to paramedic school.
I guess I would disagree with that. That is an agreement that says that the fireman will go within 5 years. Like I say, I don't think the agreement has the detail in it that it should be when I read it, because here we are discussing it, and you're right, it's not in there. And it should be in there that either the administration, in my case, I would designate that the chief has to approve in advance when you go. And I can understand why. He needs that for budgeting purposes, and his ability to budget when that fireman's going, and with all the overtime that you have to get now to be able to man the houses that you have to do, I can understand his position of why he just can't. Well, what if 10 or 12 of you went at the same time? All because you signed an agreement when you came on the fire department. That wouldn't work at all. He'd have to close some firehouses.
It's in the past practice, it's usually been, the most we've seen is 6 at a time. And that's been kind of their budgeting. And from 2014 on, that's kind of how it's been. We did have a gap period from when I graduated in November 2017 to 2021. We only sent 4 people for 4 years. Of course, that was not their administration. That's nothing on them.
Sure.
It's just, there was a huge gap right there. That should have never happened. We should have continually had 6 going every year, and we would never be here in this position anyway. But it's just kind of how we fall. So I appreciate you guys hearing us on it. Thank you.
Jordan Price. Just one more real quick thing. I know how you said about the 12 going willy-nilly to just go sign up for class and run the budget up for the fire department. Absolutely nobody on the department looks at it that way, plans to do that or anything like that. We all of us that have been hired on, understand that we will be approached when it is our time. And that is exactly what happened. And he was within his obligations and his seniority to be chosen, and it was brought to him. So he didn't just go sign up just because, I just want to go sign up this year, and this is my time, and this is what I feel like. It was presented to him just like everybody else. Nobody after him decided to go sign up for that
But you
class.
see, the words you used, he would be approached. Okay, approached by whom?
The
Did the
EMS chief.
chief approach
The
him?
EMS chief did approach him, who acts
Okay.
under the chief.
But basically, from what I'm hearing in all this discussion, he doesn't have the authority to tell him, you sign up for the class, you will be paid. That only comes from the chief's office and all
See,
the
that's-
information and everything. That's where the problem is, and that's what I'm trying to solve.
You said you've read that information, or you were told that information?
But
That the EMS chief doesn't have the authority to send people to paramedic school? You said you read that, or you were told that?
the EMS authority, I'm assuming he's a lieutenant?
No.
Or less.
No, he is a deputy chief.
Is he a battalion chief?
He's a deputy chief.
Well, is that a battalion chief?
He's hired, technically higher. His chain of command is the the chief, the assistant chief, and the chief of EMS. The chief of EMS does not answer to anybody else besides those two. And the battalion chief does not answer the chief of EMS. The battalion chief answers to the assistant chief and the chief. So we have a deputy chief approach him. Not only did his lieutenant also approach him, but the deputy chief of EMS, who controls sending people to paramedic school, our medications, stocking, our certifications, everything EMS related. These guys never deal with anything EMS related. It's the EMS chief's job. That's why he is the deputy chief of EMS.
Clarify something for me.
Yes.
When we went back through this, and I'm going off memory,
Yes.
it was the union president, and was he also the acting or interim?
So Kyle
I'm just trying-
Vickers is our union president. During
Right.
that time, Kyle Vickers was gone. At that time, Chris Morris, not only is he Lieutenant Engine 1 up there, so Michael Stoltzfus would fall under his command, he was also the acting union president because he was our first vice president. So due to our union president being away, he assumed the role and the responsibilities of our union president and had his authority. So yes, his direct supervisor was not only right there with him, suggested it, also the acting union president, but it was brought to his attention for the lieutenant to even say anything from the deputy EMS chief, again, who is a deputy chief who only answers to the chief's office. And in that meeting, the first meeting we had, he did stand up here and explain to you guys that he was directed by the chief's office to gain interest. So it is still on them. None of this is Michael Stoltzfus' fault. This is all on the administration and miscommunication between them. He's met every contractual obligation, done nothing, absolutely nothing wrong. Things went wrong on their side, not Michael Stoltzfus.
Chief?
Chief Kinder, like I said, but the last meeting we had, I just started 6 paramedics into paramedic school to reprogram. This came in at that exact same time, and there was 5 members brought to me that was wanting to do that program. At the time, I talked to Firefighter Stoltzfus, and I talked to Acting President Morris at that time, brought him in, set him down, and explained to them, we cannot have 11 medics at a time. At this time, I cannot support this program. I can't stop you from taking it because it's a grant-based program and the state was paying for it. So if he got accepted into that program, I couldn't stop him from going. If he went on his own, and I explained this, that's why 3 of the guys didn't go. Because in fact, they're enrolled in this next class that starts this next August. For that reason, we said we could not send 11 guys to medic school at the exact same time. I could not support it. I could not fund it. That was the point I made at that point. And they was very clear, and it was straight clear to them that the chief's office at that time was not going to support it. The EMS chief doesn't have budget approval. He doesn't have the ability to do the budget either. The budget comes from myself and Assistant Chief Clark. So anytime it deals with finance, it has to come through us. And that's why I said I was clear about it then. I was clear about it the whole time in 24, and then the grievance got filed in 25.
So this discussion you had with those 5 individuals,
You can ask Chris, when Chris Morris was here there at the last meeting, you guys didn't ask him, but he was the one that set them down and explained to them that the chief's office could not support them 5 going to that class. But if they volunteered for it, there was a cost to that. If they volunteer for it, we could not support them in overtime.
And this was prior to Stoffel signing up for this
So this,
class?
that, right, that was in the end of August, 1st of September. That class got put in, that class got dropped into the state 6 weeks before it started.
I think the union disagrees.
Well,
They're behind you, that's shaking their head. That's-
I know, but that's that's what was brought to my office. That's when it all came down.
Okay.
That's what it all, like I said, I was very adamant and clear at that time. That's my grievance resolve.
Thank you.
Thanks.
To be very clear, that was not prior. That was post of him being in the class, being accepted into the class. So again, the chief goes back to that, but the damage had already been done. The situation had already happened. And once they realized the situation they had put themselves in, that's when they retroactively went and did that. So again, it was post. And he stood up here again and said that he could not financially support this. And then we have proven to you time and time and again that he could financially support this. And not only is he not paying these two, and this individual and the other individual, they're overtime right now, but he is currently sending 6 more guys to medical school right now. So that is not a factual statement, and it can be proven. Thank you.
Mr. Blake, before you say anything, is it possible to gather substantiating documents that show the timing of the offer of the class? Can we get this in a nice, easy?
It is.
Yeah,
It's in that packet.
So we should,
It's all in a series of events.
is there an opportunity for us to pause this and go back and do an evidentiary on this? I think this boils down to just this absolute timing. I mean, unless you guys see it differently.
I mean, I would not recommend taking a recess while you're looking at the paperwork.
Yeah.
I would not recommend that, but I see Ken flipping through, and I've got the exhibits.
Well, he said you were talking about the time frame you gave us, and that's what I was looking for real quick.
Exhibit 8.
I reviewed it, but the timing of the course and when it was offered and when he was signed up.
So it was their exhibit 8.
Yep, I got it.
Stand on that, looking for. Yeah, that's what I thought.
So you submitted your application on September the 2nd, is when you submitted your application to the School of EMS. And you talked with, let me see here, on April 25th, let's see, you signed a pre-employment agreement at that time, after you said you'd already been on the department for 4 months, and said you'd be fired if you didn't sign it. And in August, Dennis, Deputy Chief, mentioned that there was we're in the READ program.
Okay, so he gave you the updated, we all agree here, he gave you the updated pre-employment agreement on April the 25th of 2024? We agree on that? You were informed by the class in August of 24? Okay? So,
So Chief, when did you have your meeting with the 5?
The very first week of September.
Jordan Price. Quick remark on him saying that he met with Chris Morris prior. That has absolutely nothing to do with it. Chris Morris has no authority to speak on behalf of the union by himself without any other union representatives there. He can't sit there and make a deal with the chief or anything like that. So just because he talked to Chris Morris, and again, Chris Morris will stand up here and tell you no deal was made or anything like that. All he simply did with Chris Morris was tell him his stance on it, and Chris Morris relayed that information. He has no dog in this fight.
My question would be, when was it conveyed to the fire department? Specifically, Mr. Stolfus could be part of that in total, or specifically to Mr. Stolfus, that he would not be compensated.
It's on the mission, the class didn't officially start until the 30th of September. It was noted before the class time started. Also, where grant funded member didn't go, they dropped out.
Michael Stoltzfus. I will say that Chief Kinder did mention that I could drop out of class and join again in July, and he would pay for everything. So that was a slap in the face.
You say you did mention that? Yes. And you decided not to drop out, but to continue? I'm sorry?
I'm almost finished. Why would I start over?
Sorry, I cut you off earlier. I apologize, sir.
Jeremy Blake, I was trying to get up here, Mr. Powell, to answer your question about the Deputy Chief of EMS and chain of commands kind of thing. So under Chief Kinder's administration, I guess I would ask who approaches individuals currently in class? If it's not the EMS chief, doesn't have that authority, who has approached these other guys that are currently in class that's been approved by the chief's office, would be my question, if it's not the EMS chief.
Chief Kinder, Richmond Fire. The truth is, we're arguing over a program that got put in place without the control of the Richmond Fire Department. It was outside our control. We just had 6 enrolled in the READ program that started the same exact day as that program. We'd already enrolled, they'd already been through their A&P 1 and 2 and over the summer. That was all budgeted, and we controlled that. We got them all in that. The Randolph County program was put in place just prior to that, and that's what's caused this problem. Because it was a grant-funded program that if they applied for it and they got the grant, they got to go through the class for no cost. But we'd already sent our 6 that we were already sending, that we do every year. We'd already done that. This was above that, and we couldn't support it. There's the rub. If that doesn't happen, this is not an issue. This is a non-issue.
So I'll go back to my statement from earlier. In Kenyatta, you may want to hear this to make sure we're all on the same page, and Kim as well. A no vote on this grievance is the only thing that doesn't open up for a contractual addendum. Is that what we're saying? Is that what legal and HR is saying? I'm trying to understand as to the simplest of levels.
The language says any grievance settlement that is related to this contract. So, and Kenyatta, I would
You're
absolutely
for Kenyatta.
want your perspective as
you
well.
You get a shot, hold on.
The way the contract language is written, it's saying that anything that you agree to that is not necessarily in line with what's already written is going to become a part of it as a way to adjust
Right.
where there are holes. That's the best way I can explain how the addendum would function.
Correct.
But if we added another sentence in here that said, this does not change the grievance procedure whatsoever, and you put that as part of the contract, then whatever the grievance procedure is would continue just like it is.
If both sides sign off on it.
I mean, yeah, I mean, when it comes to contracts, that's the thing. It's a meeting of the minds. Two people, whoever's involved, if there's an agreement with regard to it, then obviously that agreement would be upheld. I don't want to overstep on this, like in terms of advising.
You can,
Sure.
So, to me, it's not best practice. That's all I'm going to say. I'll leave it at that.
Jordan Price, like Ms. Vessels, you stated, any settlement will change the contract. So even a no will change this. It will set the precedent for people in Michael Stolzfus' situation. The contract will be changed and language will be put in to where it prevents someone in his shoes to be paid or anything else. So it will affect people in the future. No matter the outcome, yes or no, any settlement will become an addendum to fix the confusion.
I would think that in the future, we would want require, definitive approval from the chief moving forward. So I don't know that we would necessarily want to.
Under major rights, I already have that. I'm the one that do it.
Right.
But the union's saying in essence, you don't have to approve it. That
Right.
He has the approval
From the deputy.
his superior
Yeah.
or supervisor to do it, yeah.
I do keep getting hung up on the 10-day
Yeah.
period.
Yep.
And I guess looking back at the timeline now, I think I'd previously been looking at the December period when the checks started coming, and as I mentioned earlier, but I mean, the timeline has in September that the chief said, quote, there was no chance I would be getting paid. And I guess I do wonder if that should actually be when the clock starts for the grievance, and why it shouldn't be.
That even if the chief says that, that does not mean that that's going to happen. How these grievances work, he didn't become aggrieved until what the chief said became a fulfillment. Once he finally did not get paid, that is when he was aggrieved. Just because I can give false threats all I want, but just because I say it and nothing falls through with it doesn't mean that it's going to come to fruition. Once he finally was not paid, that's when he knew, oh, I'm not getting paid for this. That is how these grievance processes work. You can say whatever you want, but until it actually happens, that's when the timeline starts. And again, there is a specific term for this. It's called the continuous grievance doctrine. And each time he is not paid, he is aggrieved. That is a new timeline. Each exact time I've been aggrieved this time, my next overtime paycheck comes. I didn't get paid again. I'm aggrieved this time, and it continues on and on and on.
I would really hesitate to create a precedent, though, in which a department head or a chief states that someone's not going to be paid and they pursue the training regardless and then request to be reimbursed after the fact.
Under contractual obligation.
Just as
So
far
you
as
would have
when-
had $150, if I recall, invested at that time? So you had no financial obligation at that time then?
Jeremy Blake, First Vice. I think what Stolfus is trying to relay is we didn't know as a union and he didn't know as an individual, once he accepted those grant money, if he didn't fulfill those grant terms, who's responsible? And that was another factor why he didn't drop out and why he didn't drop out at a later time when the chief offered him, you drop out of that class, I'll sign you up for this next class. We didn't know if he broke the terms of that grant that he accepted.
Yes.
who's responsible.
Did he inquire? What happens if you broke the terms of the grant?
Well, there is no easy answer. I mean,
Yeah.
I think we're basically back to where we started, really, on this. Definitely a communications problem, no doubt about that. It's a difficult case. Like I said, I've spent hours on this, trying to find a solution. It's obvious you're not happy with my solution on here. I'm sure the chief's not happy with it either.
Everything except for the half.
Well,
I agree with you. I agree with you, Board Member Paust. We're at a kind of a moment here where we may have to table and do some reviewing.
I don't think it can be tabled.
Can't be tabled any longer?
It's under the grievance procedure.
This is the final answer, then. Okay.
The board shall make a final answer within 21 administrative working days after said final meeting. So, well, the deadline is the 24th.
Yeah.
We scheduled it for today. So, yeah, okay.
but even if we postpone this, what other information are we gonna ask for that somebody can provide us that we don't already have? I mean,
I don't,
I don't,
for me, it would be nice to have some kind of stipulation that just assures that we are not undermining the 10-day window for future grievances. It sounds like there may be risks involved in doing that, but I feel like that's kind of the rub right now.
Yeah, I, like I said, my intent, and I'm not speaking for them, but I'm sure they're on the same page, is not to be part of your contract
Right.
in any shape, form, or way. Looking for,
Gordon Price. In all honesty, I don't see how this truly does change the contract. The 10-day process has been a thing. The continuous grievance doctrine has been a thing. It's never changed. The contract says that the city will pay for all associated costs, and he's claiming management rights, which we acknowledge. But we understand how we look at it is his management rights extend to his personnel that he manages, and that he can give them, they have that power because they are put in that position by him. He can't oversee, he can't look at 1,000 screens at once. So we don't feel like this is going to change much at all, except for upholding the contract, the pre-employment agreement that he has already signed, saying that all costs will be covered. Now, if we want to clarify in this new revised pre-employment agreement that the chief has to give it in writing and everything like that, I think that's a very small thing to change compared to what is already in there. All we have to do is to compensate the guys that follow their contract and their obligations and clarify where the chief stands in sending individuals to paramedic school. We don't have to muddy the waters too much and create a big addendum that changes the contract. The contract's already written, and most of this stuff is already in there. That is why the union is having such a strong stance and such a large packet of evidence and supported documents to show, to prove our point. Again, the only two things that the chief is claiming here, grievance time barred, the 10 days, and unable to financially support this, both are not supported. Both of his arguments are not supported at all. The only thing that he's arguing that you guys are taking heed to is his management rights, again, we acknowledge those, but we also acknowledge that the deputy chiefs also have the authority to continue on with what the chief has given out. So to finish this meeting and not prolong it, if we were to pay Michael Stoltzfus in full, all that would be changed is that pre-employment agreement that the city and the chief's office came up with, not Michael Stoltzfus. It's not his fault that there was an oversight. So again, we're punishing one of our members for an oversight on the administration side and something that they didn't look forward to in the future of a problem happening, and everything else that's transpired from the top down to get Michael Stoltzfus to this position. He is suffering from their mistakes and miscommunication. This is a very simple, honestly, it's a very simple fix, truthfully. Him and Jeremy Hodap are the only two individuals in this situation, and they will only forever from here on out be the only two individuals in this situation if we settle it that way.
President Vickers, a question. So if the chief doesn't have to uphold his part of the pre-appointment agreement, does Michael Stoltzfus and Jeremy Hodap have to uphold their part of the pre-employment agreement? If so, if they do not, neither one has to. So that means him and Jeremy don't have to become paramedics. So what kind of snowball effect does that create for the rest of our department? Knowing that you don't have to uphold this agreement, you don't have to become a paramedic, and so on and so forth, that's going to create a snowball effect and a bad avenue that we are now going to put ourselves even 10 years further back as a department. We're already 20 years behind in the state of Indiana through the fire and EMS service. So I really, when you're considering this, think about if you say no to this agreeing to us, you could possibly set our department back 20 years.
The legal agreement, Kim, I would ask you this based on what they're saying. When you look at what it actually says here, how would you interpret that based on the hearing we've had here in
So-
this particular case?
The pre-employment agreement, and they're not grieving the pre-employment agreement, that has a generous 5-year leeway. The case law that I remember reading, and this was back in 14, about a pre-employment agreement, was it's primarily set up to be akin to a loan agreement, so that when someone is hired on and gets a benefit of the administration paying for these classes, and then they up and leave, that's the intent of this agreement according to the case law I read. Again, this was 2014, 2013, whenever I read it. I think it was a 2000, I don't remember the year the case was, 2008 or 2009, I'm not 100% sure. So they're not grieving this contract, they're grieving under their bargaining agreement. But my recollection from that case law is that this is essentially designed to protect your fire chief if they have an employee who just leaves and then takes advantage of the free education that is paid for by the fire chief. That's my recollection, again, from 10 years ago, 11 years ago. Did that answer your question?
Kind of.
To add to that, there was when I signed mine, when me and the gentleman in 2014, there was never anything. I will give the chief's office credit that they did whenever you guys, was it last year?
March last year.
They redid it. They did spell out the stipulations then when it should have been in 2014. And we supported that as a union because there's no reason you should not if you're gonna pay for somebody's education, you have to get a return on your investment. Now that the whole thing of it is it's not a it was kind of an iron fist deal. Believe me, I had a conversation in the hallway with somebody. You pass this class or I fire you. And it's always been iron fist there. Don't get that twisted.
Jordan Price. I do want to speak on what you just said. It is in our grievance that we are going against being aggrieved by the pre-employment agreement as well, due to, there's a few sentences in there, but the one major specific sentence is that the city will cover all costs associated with his class.
So Dustin and I can speak on this a little bit. Our intent when we worked on this agreement for the benefit of both sides, for the education piece of it, was, so, I hate to use this term, you're an indentured servant. You understood the cost, you understood everything, right? You guys had protection. The gap in this, from listening to this, is there should have been a period. There should have been like a period to say, okay, let's ensure that everybody's taken care of at this point, and this will become effective on this date. I think ultimately it was probably rolled out almost probably immediately, is what I'm kind of getting the feeling here. So that was a gap. It is what it is. It was just something that wasn't very well thought out, okay? Fine with that. So the question is, you have a motion on the floor. Mr. Powell, do you want to continue with that motion? Do you want to pull that motion? That's really the question. I know I'm putting you in a spot, and I don't want to do that to you, obviously.
No, that's fine. I do have a motion. We're discussing it.
Yeah.
And I'm open to listen to any other suggestions that might come forward. I guess I still feel this is a compromised situation. Unfortunately, when you get into all the contract
Sure.
and all that lingo and all that other stuff on there, to me, still is another whole issue on there. And that part is unfortunate, I think, in this particular
So I
case.
do have another question. So we're getting down to the point of the time of the grievance, right? So either way, if I'm listening to this and I'm following this correctly, you feel they were out of grievance time. They feel they're within grievance time, right?
Right.
That's what they're feeling, right? So any way that we, like you said, any way that we vote on this, there could be a potential for that addendum to hit the contract either way, is what I'm gathering here, is just by listening to all this, in my interpretation. You have that chin moving up and down, so I assume you agree with me, Mr. Blank. So that's really the question.
So, and that leads me actually to a question in my head, which when he's describing this continuous grievance doctrine, is that a case law doctrine that is case law over the state of Indiana and the Seventh Circuit? I'll be blunt, I have not studied that. So if I assume that that doctrine is in place, then I wouldn't be overly, I worry about everything. I'm not going to be overly worried about the 10-day thing if that continuous grievance doctrine, if I'm assuming that that is a legitimate case law doctrine. So I don't know if that answers your question either. Not really, probably.
No, because just to your point, what is that? What is that? What does that mean? I mean the continuous, I understand in theory what it means, but to your point, is it?
Is that the case law where they voluntarily signed up? Is that the one you're quoting there?
I was just asking the side question in my mind when Mr. Price was explaining the continuous grievance doctrine, was whether that was a doctrine outlined or described or articulated in Indiana case law or Indiana Seventh Circuit case law. And then, like I said, I'm being blunt, I did not study that particular doctrine.
Comment on that, I also cannot give you exactly if it is case law or not. This is just through me working with the union and past members and retirees and stuff. This is information that was provided to me of something that does exist.
Okay. So I'm not saying I'm not worried about it. I didn't want to be overly worried about it to the point where you guys couldn't make a decision based on the merits or based upon the facts of the case.
Seems to me it really kind of boils down to the part of, let's just take my motion, that if we passed that, their concern is that it would change something and it would change on the grievance procedure.
Yeah.
It boils down to kind of that.
Yeah.
And
Kim, is your point that to accept the motion as presented by Ken would not necessarily open the floodgates to additional grievances on the basis of changing the 10-day window?
When I was discussing with Ken the different stipulations, and the fourth stipulation said that this partial approval shall not alter or affect the written contracts and policies already in place as based on federal law. And looking again, because I had forgotten about this last provision in the collective bargaining agreement, any grievance settlement that is related to this contract will be attached to this contract as an addendum. So it's contradicting that statement. And that was, in my mind, that was the workaround that was being looked for. Because you didn't want to disturb the contract, you wanted to find a compromise that said, if we say yes or no, it's not great either way, but if you were wanting a compromise, that might have been a workaround.
what I was trying to do.
That's exactly,
Yeah.
yeah, it's-
So,
we're all on the same page.
so you're clear from the, President Vickers, so if you're clear from the union side, I pretty much agree with what you're saying, I believe, if I'm following correctly. So we don't feel like we're outside of the 10 days. You've acknowledged that. They do, because of the continuance of a grieving in the situation, him having clinicals, not getting paid. We don't foresee that there's no need to addendum anything. The only thing that we foresee from the union side, because there shouldn't be any change to the language in the contract. It should always be 10 days. But the fact that we have the continuing of the grieving, the only thing we want is that our firefighters that go to paramedic school get paid. That the firefighters that sign the pre-employment agreement. We do have two that's never signed a pre-employment agreement and have went. And they went with the acknowledging that they were not going to get paid. But the people who signed the pre-employment agreement, because this is a stipulation of your employment, we just want those individuals paid. We don't foresee any needed addendum change or anything to the language. We just want what's in place upheld. Is that clear from our side? Or am I speaking French?
No, you're not
So-
speaking, you're not
No,
speaking French, we follow you.
I think it's very clear that.
Yeah,
Okay.
we understand you totally.
Your man went to school, you
Yep.
want him
Want him
paid.
paid.
It's
That's it.
that simple.
Because it's
Yeah, I
been
agree.
happening since
I agree.
since I signed it and
Yeah.
regret, so we're just looking that way.
Right.
Jordan Price. So I would come to the understanding of, we'd probably all agree that the one thing here that we really need to touch base on is the chief's management rights on sending individuals and giving them his approval, which I think, again, is, like President Vickers said, we uphold the contract that is already in place. That's all we're asking. And if he needs clarification on the process of how that contract gets followed, that is a very simple and easy fix to be put in place. I'm not understanding I'm not saying you guys aren't explaining it well, but I'm just not understanding on the difficulty of the decision here.
Assistant Chief Clark, I was in the back room listening. I have one question of the motion that's been presented. How can you guys decide to go against federal labor laws? You're suggesting only paying half. Well, you can't do that. Federal labor laws, if you're agreeing that he's aggrieved, you got to pay him for his time. we or the board can't decide to only pay for half his time. That's federal labor laws, and that hangs up in every workplace. So my question to the board is, how do we navigate around that?
So there were several pieces of federal law that were provided in the exhibit packet. And before the meeting, I had also pointed out Federal Code 29 CFR 785.30 and .31. So that addresses, where'd it go? There you are. So that addresses the overall federal law of when someone is told to go versus going on their own accord versus choosing to go. That's where.
It's still considered work, though.
I'm sorry?
It's still considered work. If it's required by the job and the board agrees he was aggrieved, you can't decide just to pay him half. That's federal law. Labor.
Do you want me to read these two into the record?
Please do.
Okay, 29 CFR 785.30, independent training. Of course, if an employee on his own initiative attends an independent school, college, or independent trade school after hours, the time is not hours worked for his employer, even if the courses are related to his job. And 29 CFR 785.31, special situations. There are some special situations where the time spent in attending lectures, training sessions, and courses of instruction is not regarded as hours worked. For example, an employer may establish for the benefit of his employee a program of instruction which corresponds to courses offered by independent bona fide institutions of learning. Voluntary attendance by an employee at such courses outside of working hours would not be hours worked, even if they are directly related to his job or paid for by the employer. In this case, the agreement, which was meant to be compromised and kept in place, gave that 5 years to have the chief's office and the budget sustain that. So that, combined with the federal law that were in the exhibits from the administration, that was their exhibits I looked at afterwards because I didn't get it until like a week or two before the meeting. But in the meantime, I was studying as
Well,
best I could the entirety of the federal law.
Would agree with that, the way it's written, but the key term in is that related. So the paramedicine is required. That's the two difference. So if this goes through, it is set precedence. So any class related to the job, the board is essentially saying, we're going to pay for half of their time in the class and the class, if there's a fee.
With
Because
the
this will
stipulation.
set precedence.
With the stipulations that future agreements say this is not going to happen again. That's
With
the
what-
way I took,
So you would have to change the contract.
that was the point of the stipulations that I believe Ken had articulated to me, and then I was able to,
Well, then how do you
Maneuver it.
discriminate against future or current employees that go to classes that relate to their job? Here, recently, we just had to, I know we're not supposed to make comments, but we had to turn down training because it wasn't in the budget. But if that said firefighter goes to class,
I believe,
the board is saying, we're gonna pay half.
I believe Mr. Paus was trying to just rectify the mistake
Yes.
that
Yeah.
they're claiming was happened, but
You know, I'm not saying that in the future, anybody that goes, you're gonna pay half just because they sign up for a class.
You would be discriminating,
That's
though,
not-
that's the problem, be setting up the department for litigation. And that's some of the issues that I have.
even if the agreement says otherwise.
Again, how can we agree
We'll say.
against related and required by job and go against federal labor laws? The way I understand them. That's my question to the board, and I would
Well,
like you
again,
guys to address
from
it.
what I remember in 14, and somebody said the word indentured servant. The 14 case law that I saw was saying that these pre-employment agreements weren't really about indentured servitude. It was about being able to claw back what the budget paid out, what the taxpayer money paid out.
if the individual left.
if the individual
Right,
left.
right. And that's the extent of that employment agreement. That's what it's all geared to.
It's a
Right, right, yeah.
Jeremy Blake, First Vice. There's 163 pages in the Fair Laborers Act that pertain to firefighters. So I'd like to, I'm just curious if that is part of that section that applies to police and fire. And I've been involved in a few of these, and I don't envy your guys' position at all. And I thank you guys for your time. And I may be getting this confused with fact-finding. I've been involved in fact-finding a couple times. But I think you guys have the ability to caucus in law chambers. You can't,
Not under the open door law.
okay, all right,
This is a grievance and this is not a disciplinary matter, it's a grievance,
I see, okay. I was just trying to
right?
find a workable solution, so you guys can speak freely.
Well, I'm trying to speak freely. You know what I'm trying to do here, yeah. That's the
What?
reason that I called the law department, because one of my questions was the time and a half, yeah. And is it even feasible to do what I came up with, which was my compromise, to pay half? And you've asked that question, I've asked that question. Basically, legal kind of come back and said, yeah, you could propose that, so I've proposed it.
Jordan Price. With Chief Clark's mention of litigation, like Lieutenant Blake stated, there's vast pages of federal labor law that pertains to firefighters specifically. Those that we submitted to you were not all of it. There was just some supporting documents that we felt that would more solidify our argument a little bit more. There's much, much more. Again, like you said, I don't know if your case law is looking exactly at this type of situation, but I also am under the understanding too that if this does go to litigation, Michael Stoltzfus, under the labor laws, he would be eligible for suing for double and lawyer fees. So it would, if it did go to litigation, it would ultimately cost more than double than what he's even asking.
So what you're saying now, if you don't like our agreement, whatever we come up
I'm
with,
not saying-
you're gonna file civil suit?
I'm not the
then?
one that's being, this is not my situation. I'm saying if Michael Stoltzfus decided to go that route, if he's not paid in full and he doesn't feel like he's compensated and he feels like he's been done wrong and has a civil suit, he would, I'm just making a statement that he would be eligible under the laws that he would be paid double what is owed and lawyer fees. I'm just making that be known since he brought up litigation.
That might be very interesting to see how the judge would rule on all the questions we've come up with here.
Like Lieutenant Blake said, I don't envy you guys at all, and I do appreciate all your guys' time, even today, hearing all of us out.
So in total, his claim, and this will be through the entirety of the class, or will there be additional funds on top of this, other hours? Since he's almost done. I'm trying to get what the real dollar amount is here.
It should be very close to that. Once my final hours are tallied up, it's gonna be, I'd say, within 1,000.
So your top end is probably
But
70.
I only calculated this at $30 an hour, which is time and a half, roughly. Not exactly sure what our hourly rate is. Might be on the high side, might be on, it's plus or minus.
I was looking here, what is the total amount that you've asked for,
I'm not asking for a total amount, I'm asking to be paid for my hours.
right? And how many hours was that? I don't know if we ever had that.
It's right here. It's 120 classroom hours, 408 clinical hours, for a total of 528 hours. Course cost was free. He's estimated it at overtime, as you said, at $30 per hour. That would lead us to $15,840. He said might be an additional $1,000 on top of that.
Okay.
Be somewhere around there, yeah, that's roughly. I don't know the dollar amount.
Top
I
end
just know the
17.
hours.
17, okay, okay.
I'm also sure with this, Mr. Hodat will be approaching for the same compensation. Is that fair to say?
So, exactly. So with this grievance being settled, this outcome would be Jeremy Hodap's outcome. If Michael Stoltzfus is compensated, Jeremy Hodap would be compensated. If he's not, then same with Jeremy Hodap.
Who is this Jeremy?
He's the other individual that is also in the class that is in the same exact situation.
Same class that,
Same class, same exact situation, approach, the same, everything. They were together, yes.
okay.
Does that, oh, I mean, since he hasn't filed a grievance, does that work?
Binding, I mean, is it
It would apply
applicable?
retroactively.
That was my understanding, was that notwithstanding the 10-day, based upon the fact that this was permitted to come to the Board of Works, that they were holding off on the other, how many there ever there were, based on what happened with Mr. Stoltzfus.
Chief Kinder, Richmond Fire, my biggest concern is if he is paid on a volunteer basis, he went on the class on his own merit. We didn't, the administration didn't support it. We didn't okay it. And if he goes and gets paid, then the next guy's going, they can pick a class and go and then say, we want paid.
I think at least one of the
That goes back again
stipulations.
to, that
Yeah.
goes back again to that written authorization, right?
I've done my
Yeah,
best to
I-
say that they can't do that.
No, but that's, the grievance has an outcome through the grievance procedure in that last sentence, because it has financial to it, can change the contract. Like I said, that gives, you're gonna lose a 10-day, and like I said, the chief's office, I control the budget, and we control how that works, and that goes outside that.
Well, I would suggest that, depending however we rule here tonight, that you update the agreement and put additional language in there so none of this happens again, which then you wouldn't have other firemen that could
But the
just
agreement we got,
voluntarily
the
go.
agreement we got to the Board of Works was a reimbursement agreement. That's once we sent them and paid for it, and once they graduated, that clock started.
Yeah, but that
That's what that agreement is for.
really is more to,
That's the reimbursement.
more like
Once-
going to St. Clair.
It's the read.
Read any of the programs we pay for.
Well, that I agree on, yeah.
That's what that reimbursement agreement's for, is once they complete their paramedic, that 5-year clock starts and the reimbursement schedule starts. So if they leave at year 1, then it's a full, they owe all the money back. Year 2, it's 25% less, and so on.
So, one other question, is a firefighter, when is he no longer considered probationary?
After his first year, after he completes his first year.
Mr. Stoltzfus was.
January 2nd of 2025, he
Mr.
completed.
Stoltzfus probationary still this time or not?
He was in probation when he started the class. And we don't like putting probation, I don't like putting probation into medic class because they're still fire at will at that point, and they can be terminated for any reason. And it's hard to put them into a class and give money, and then something happens where you terminate them, you're out that money.
Price would like the podium.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Chief Kinder states that they don't like sending individuals that are on probation to medical school, and that may be the case. But the fact of the matter is since Chief Kinder's been here, he has sent probationary members to get their paramedic. And Michael Stoltzfus was told he could attend the READ program while he was probationary. So I think him being probationary is a moot point here.
Let me turn this question another way. So who he was sending to the courses, was it this course or was it the READ course, the probationary people?
I can't answer that. Well, this course that Stoltzfus is in, no. He wasn't sending anybody, according to him, even though it was perceived that way and passed down that way.
So did any probationary officers under his administration get assigned to any other course outside of
I
Region?
believe School of EMS, yes. I believe the last class of School of EMS.
That's okay. That's what I was trying to understand.
We currently have a probationary firefighter enrolled in the READ program starting in August.
Anything else? We can, any other rock we can
I think
overturn to try to understand this clearly?
Just for my clarification, going back to the chief's concern a moment ago, and this is probably for Kim, the third stipulation in Ken's motion, that all future pre-employment agreements contain the provision that the fire chief's approval must be in writing and also in advance of enrollment. I mean, can that sort of protect us from the concern that we would just have future cases arising?
The union would love that. And also, the union would love in that pre-employment agreement that when you're told to go, that you should go and not have the option to say no. That would be, I think, would be absolutely fair, especially under his management rights. Would you not agree?
Yeah, well, I remember Mr. Stoffel turned something down, I forget exactly what, because he wanted to spend more time with his family, and he didn't want to go at that particular time. I do remember that when you're, and I can see why you would say that in the contract, that when whoever decides they have to go, that you've got to go. You don't have a choice. Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because when the tones go off, we don't have a choice but to go.
that's
Your
right.
house is on fire, we go. We don't have a choice to say no, whether I want to be at home with my family or not.
Well, and the good
We
part
take this
about,
job, we know that.
well, and that could all be part of the initial orientation or whatever you do when, before you decide to hire a firefighter and you come here and put their name on the
Absolutely.
list, that, you know, if you do all of this, here are your responsibilities. And-
Absolutely.
And it will affect your family because it takes time to do all this
Do
work.
you think that candidates interviewing and applying for the Richmond Fire Department should be aware that they have to become a paramedic in 5 years? When you're applying and
That's
interviewing?
not for our decision.
I would just, I'm at,
Yeah,
would you?
yeah, yeah.
Well, it's a pre-employment agreement.
I would
That's
certainly
pretty
think, if I was gonna be a firefighter, and what are all my obligations?
We don't like to tell them that, though.
So,
Well,
Thank you.
let me ask you a question. And I understand there's mandatory. Is there anything legal involved with saying, I know it's a great offer on on the union's behalf, that says you have to go at this moment? Or within that 5-year agreement, does that give them leeway? I mean, you understand what I'm saying?
No, I don't understand what you're saying.
No, I'm just saying that if the chief walks up to him now and says, you have to go to training, right? And they're like, they've just come out of their probationary period, as an example, so they've got 4 years left. Their pre-employment agreement says within 5 years. So if
Correct.
they're dictated to go at that moment, does that do anything to that pre-employment agreement? I'm just listening to you, trying to also
Well,
listen to you as you're.
So that,
Jamie, what he was saying was,
Yeah, I
it ought to be in the agreement that
Yes,
says,
I
yeah,
understand,
yeah.
but then on the other side, is there a grievance on the backside?
Right,
Because-
well, right now, the agreement doesn't
Yeah.
say that.
Yeah.
so it's, and it does say this employee acknowledges and agrees that he will obtain a paramedicine certification within 5 years of the date of hire.
Yeah,
But it doesn't say he has to go.
Well, yeah.
The
and
chief
so-
says you
yeah.
go, you go.
So we would have to
Yeah.
reword that as
That's,
well.
we've had an individual he took a pass not to go. Now, if you read in our contract, I believe it's under, I think it's Article 28, and we give somebody a grace period outside that 5 years, but they have to pay for it on their own. So far, we're all under the understanding, and if you guys can give us clarification. So, say Mr. Stoltzfus fails, and he's still in that 5 years, who pays for him to go again? Still the departments? That's where we haven't really fell into that, because the gentleman who did fail, he's under his grace period on his own dime at this time.
And
He don't have clarification. We don't, because
they-
that was put in before them, and We've asked that for years.
I think Jordan Price brought it up at the last meeting that it says here that a training committee shall be established to assist with that, and they said that there was no training committee established at the last hearing.
No, okay.
Thank you.
I do have one quick question.
And for clarification, we have reached out to the state of Indiana to make sure this situation never happens again, and that program will not be offered in a grant form again. That's the root of this. It got dropped in our lap, we'd already budgeted, we'd already sent, we'd already done. That's the root of this.
This is just a point of information for me. It's said in there, and I may not have this correct, the training officer shall keep all the records and information on the training or the EMT stuff, and I'm just, how do you keep all of those records?
It's done digitally through Arcadius. All of our training is through the state Arcadius website, so it's all scheduled. It's there. So all your certificates, once you get your firefighter 1, 2, driver operator, your hazmat ops awareness, EMT, paramedic, it's all in your Arcadius.
Okay, thank you.
Did I hear correctly that we are going to the state to shut down the grant program? To never have it again?
No, that's what the state said about the school mess in Winchester.
Because I would think that would be financially unwise when you're saving $31,000 a member.
We did not shut that down. That wasn't from here.
I thought what he said was he asked the state about the grant program, and they told him that they were not going to have it in the future. That's what I heard.
As of this few months ago, we looked into it again, just because we were signing up this year's class, and because we are sending 5 members to the school events in August. Because our undergraduates graduate in August, the next group starts in August.
Thank you for clarification.
Well, I guess I'm kind of still where I was. I'd add anything to this that anybody felt would be beneficial so it doesn't change the grievance period or anything that way. I think Kim did a good job on that last stipulation in there, but how that addendum affects the contract, that's beyond my legal knowledge.
It's a proposed motion at this point. What do we need to do?
I'm sorry, what'd you
It's
say?
a proposed motion at this point.
So there would need to be a second by you or Dustin. If there is no second, the motion fails, and then there would need to be another motion, or a substitute motion, or
A motion to,
motion to table to the 24th.
do we have a second? The motion fails.
I'll second.
You'll second? Yeah. All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, and with that, we are adjourned.